Welcome to the IoT podcast show. Today I'm joined by Adrie van Meijeren. Adrie is the product marketing manager at Dialog Semiconductor. Dialog is a leader in developing integrated circuits for IoT powered devices. Adrie is a highly experienced wireless system on chip sales and business development professional, from product definition to end result. Adrie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
You're very welcome. Adrie, if we could just start by just explaining what is connected health and what IoT will change in healthcare technology.
Yeah, thanks for asking the question here. So in my view, connected health is about connecting all sorts of medical devices and products and equipment to the cloud, far beyond on what we've seen today. So everyone knows about wearable elderly buttons or alarms. In some cases, these are voice pendants, and so you can do an emergency call. They can probably do some fall detection, but this is most about, let's say, monitoring and some alarm generation. Today and looking forward, what connected health I believe is about is it will be offering new solutions, helping patients in their daily life, making medicines more effective, and it will also generate real-time behavior data of patients rather than questionnaire data what is available today. So it's really a combination of tracking of equipment, monitoring, but also about more effective medicines. So benefits of connected health, as I see it, let's say going forward, is to offload the healthcare system to some extent by self-monitoring. It's keeping cost of healthcare under control, so automated patient data, reduced number of consults, and also offering some level of convenience, because a FaceTime consult is probably more convenient than traveling to your doctor, hospital, or care center. And IoT can also make a real difference to patients in their daily life, I believe. Because in diabetes, for instance, it can help avoiding critical low blood sugar levels, avoiding the hypos and associated problems to go with that. And even, let's say, reduce hospitalization. And taking insulin, for instance, when it comes to diabetes, is to do that timely is very important. So, IoT can really play a very important role. And just another example in asthma or COPD, it can also help to make medicines more effective, let's say doing guidance during inhaling events and taking control of the time between inhalings, doing noise analysis, whether an inhaling went right or wrong. So these kind of things, I think, are a great, let's say, value connected health, let's say, can bring.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite interesting you should mention the actual screening of health. So be able to video call with general practitioners and healthcare professionals, because I've recently signed up to private health in the UK, and as part of that package they had something called Babylon, which is an app that allows you to see GPs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it actually got me thinking about how you could extend that with IoT and with sensors. So to have real-time logging of information for health monitoring purposes, as opposed to it just picking it up from your smart device or your wearable, etc. So it's really interesting that you should mention that connected health element, because it's something I think ever more so on people's minds right now, coming through this pandemic. On that note, Adrie, what are the main benefits then of Bluetooth Low Energy, otherwise known as BLE solutions in the medical sector?
Well, Bluetooth Low Energy, in my view, is the perfect technology for connected healthcare to make it a reality, because it ticks all the boxes. It's about making it super small, so size, lowest power, but also cost, and also a very important factor here. Bluetooth Low Energy is one of the wireless technologies integrated into a smartphone. And that smartphone is essential for this self-monitoring because it's a gateway directly into the cloud. And that's, I think, very, very important. And then, for instance, things like tracking and locating, they're all, let's say, possible these days. Think about, let's say, the smart tags, let's say, which are widely available, which you use, let's say, to find back, let's say, your wallet or your keys. They can also be used, for instance, for medical equipment, which is often get lost in a big hospital. And new developments, let's say, both in the Bluetooth organizations and in Dialog, let's say, will further advance these capabilities with accurate distance measurement, but also in direction finding. So I think these are some great technologies and advantages of BLE. And at Dialog, we developed specifically a product, let's say, with medical disposable use cases in mind. So it has, let's say, Bluetooth connectivity to a medical device, but it's also capable of working with the type of batteries being used for medical devices. And it has some very special built-in features for instance, products like injectors. And most recently, it has been proven to be a very good fit for all sorts of devices fighting COVID-19. So I think, let's say, connected health, let's say, and IoT is happening as we speak.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see where this goes in the future. You mentioned there, Adrie, a couple of application areas, but what are the main application areas that we see today with connected health and BLE?
Yeah, for us, of course, as being a wireless, let's say, company, we look, let's say, from our business group specifically into a number of segments. So for us, diabetes care are important, asthma or COPD products, let's say, are important, blood pressure meters, and I would say also thermometer patches. So then maybe starting with diabetes care. So taking insulin is on time is very important for to be effective, but also for your well-being. And up to now, let's say patients have been filling out their questionnaires, to kind of prove how well they behave on taking their medicines in time. And typically, patients are not super disciplined, and monitoring and logging will and maybe can really help, let's say, to have insulin as an example to be more effective, and it could, let's say, so lead to reduced hospitalization. So there is some real benefit also from, I would say, a healthcare cost perspective next to convenience. And then in smart inhalers, we talked already a little bit about, let's say, the time in between inhaling events, and these kind of features will really help, let's say, to make smart inhalers to become true, because inhalers, let's say, are very often not used correctly, and they work up to 30% plus away from their effectiveness of where they should be. So it's a real added value. And then blood pressure meters, that's another, I think, great example. In the old days, you would have to visit your doctor, then you take a single measurement, and you would go away. Maybe you go to the doctor, you're maybe not as comfortable and de-stressed as you should be. If you do it at home and you can do a continuous measurement, you can actually conduct, let's say, a measurement over 24 hours. So you get a much better picture of what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, it's critical that we're proposing more solutions and advancing what we're already doing in these areas moving forward, and really using tech for good when it comes to healthcare. On that note, Adrie, we're seeing a lot of wearables becoming increasingly utilised and innovated at the moment. What are your views and that of Dialog for wearables and the connected health?
Well, in our view, wearable and connected health go very well together. So healthcare insurance companies, they want to encourage, let's say, a more healthy lifestyle. And activity trackers and sport watches are the perfect companion devices to accomplish that. And over time, you start to see already more health functions or health monitoring functions have been added to activity trackers. So it started off maybe with simple step counters, and they become more advanced. Heart rate monitoring was added, and also these kind of, let's say, functions are getting more and more advanced. So there are even, I would say, medical grade heart rate monitoring functions in wearable devices. So it's a perfect match.
Yeah. And what are the most important characteristics of great Bluetooth Low Energy IC solutions?
Um, well, it's typically coming down, let's say, to three main factors. It's about smallest in size, uh, lowest cost in case of disposable, and lowest power. These three, let's say, are always driving, let's say, applications and mass deployment. And for instance, to be able to enable this, we developed, let's say, the smart bond DA14531 for disposable connected health applications, and that has proven to be a great addition already to our smart bond family. So we have now multiple devices, both for wearable but also for connected health applications, and that makes it a great fit for medical and pharmaceutical applications. And for instance, or flagship, let's say, has already the major functions integrated. So it has all the battery management, a charger for rechargeable applications. It has a dedicated sensor node controller, so it can process the health sensor data in the most low power way, and even in display controller to be equipped, let's say, to deal with the most common used displays in wearables. So I think it's a great fit, and be more a bit more specific on our newly developed DA14531. For injectors, for instance, we have, let's say, some of the inputs on a device to be active also in its lowest power state, or basically in the shelf life or hibernation state. And once you start, let's say, to take an injector out of the box and you start to do the dose setting on the device, it will wake up, catch that dose, and moves to active mode. And in an active mode, it can range in output power to also run at the absolute lowest power. In it support for that reason a whisper mode, and it can, let's say, run, let's say, in a smartphone connected mode, or simply act as a beacon. And then, yeah, medical disposable products, they work with super low capacity batteries like silver oxide, or the lowest cost alkaline button cell batteries. They have really small capacity of energy on board. And typically when you start, let's say, to connect an electronic circuit to these kind of batteries, because of their high internal resistance, and the charge which takes place when you connect, let's say, electronics to a power source, then there are peak currents. And we actually we developed a technique to deal with that. So basically, it can start from any battery, no matter, let's say, how lousy the characteristics of the battery is. And then, of course, let's say the bill of material for disposable applications is also super important and is under enormous price pressure. And for this reason, we made sure that we can only get away with just a coil for the DC converter to convert your energy very efficiently, and just a few discretes, and that's it. So there is virtually very little adders to the bill of material, which makes it easy into manufacturing, and also attractive from a cost point.
Yeah. Thank you very much for explaining that, Adri. On that note, that's a really good point to talk about smart bond, I think. What dialogue connectivity smart bond solutions are out there at the moment in the world?
Well, we are, let's say, a big player in wearable solutions. So that part is addressed, I would say, very well and picked up by the market. And then there are a number of early adopter solutions out there, for instance, a Bluetooth clip connected to an insulin pen to log the dose and time information, as an example. And most recent, of course, there are lots of, I would say, COVID-19 fighting devices out there, like virus testers, thermometers, and yeah, just to name a few, and also some blood pressure meters are already also in the market for slightly longer time. So these are, I would say, typical devices, but there's also a lot of development going on by our customer base, and medical and pharmaceutical design cycles are long, so it takes a time before they get to market.
Sure, and it'd be interesting to know specifically from your point of view, because you're going to know this better than many people. What are the current innovations and trends that we're seeing in connected smart healthcare? You talk about the pandemic and a number of devices coming out from that. Is that the main bulk of trends that we're seeing at the moment, or are there other elements that we perhaps not touched on?
Yeah, so of course, let's say the last year we've seen a lot of activity in all sorts of devices helping to fight COVID-19. But there's definitely a trend, let's say, ongoing to make medical devices and pharmaceutical devices connected. And these developments, they take quite a bit of time before they get to market. It's a long design cycle. Then there is full FDA approval required. So that's taking a long time. Um, but that's ongoing activity, and we notice that when we actually make products, let's say smaller, lower power and lower cost, let's say, we will unlock new markets. And we still see that, let's say, with our DA14531, this is happening today. And just another example which would really benefit from a device like this is, for instance, also blood files in a lab to be tested. So instead of a barcode, once, let's say, that file is lost, you don't know where it is. If it's Bluetooth connected, let's say, it keeps on beaconing, so you can trace back, let's say, where these samples are. And another new technology, I think, which will be great, let's say, also for connected health, is a technology like AI algorithms, for instance, to detect heart failure or epileptic attacks. There are already some products with algorithms out there, but AI could be, let's say, a great technology to further enhance these kind of algorithm. And yeah, for instance, you could detect, let's say, whether a person is falling over or whether you're collapsing, for instance, from a heart attack. These kind of, let's say, continuous, let's say, developments, whether it's just by with chips, but also by algorithms running, let's say, on hardware at the lowest power. These are, let's say, continue to happen also in the future.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you talk about fall detection. So something that's just kind of had a light bulb moment in my head is it would be interesting, wouldn't it, to find out the reason behind that fall. So rather than necessarily it just alerting a device and or a next of kin, however it's set up within that device, to actually understand the reason for that fall. Was it an accident? Was it a trip? Or is there something seriously wrong with someone? And the analytics behind that and the software from continuous monitoring. That's an interesting point. Do you think we'd ever get to a point in the future where we'd be able to read into that in such detail, Adri?
Yeah, I'm convinced, let's say, that is possible. There are already some algorithms which can detect falling from I would say collapsing, and but these kind of algorithms, just as an example, will continue to be enhanced. And the other one I mentioned, like epileptic detection. If you have, for instance, if an epileptic attack is potential to appear in the future, it seems that your heart rate is temporarily increasing. And by the right algorithms, but also having the processing power to cope with that, let's say, you can do early detection of these kind of events.
Yeah,
And they're making, let's say, a big difference in people's life.
100%. And I think what's important would be to have a series of control measures to ensure that the report or the reading is accurate. Because I think, thinking out loud, the last thing that you would want is it to incorrectly diagnose or state that something has happened when it may not be the case. So you'd have certain procedures built into those algorithms in order to say this must be that, and we can say with this amount of certainty that this is the reason for that event. In an almost limitlessly connected world, Adrie, what is still to come?
I think in an unlimited world, let's say, it's probably anything you can think of will be connected. I mentioned, for instance, injectors, inhalers, but there could also be other things, let's say, connected. But I think the message here is there are, let's say, dozens and dozens, let's say, of use cases we haven't touched on, and whether they will get connected at the end of the day is a matter of again, let's say, the cost of goods, power, and size.
Yeah.
And for every 10 cent you could knock off, you could probably, let's say, triple, quadruple your volume.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Adrie, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. And it's been really interesting to hear your thoughts and that of Dialog into where we're going with IoT. We hope you could join again sometime in the future.
You're welcome. It was a joy to be here. Thanks again for inviting me.
Thank you. If you'd like to find out more about Dialog Semiconductor, please follow them on Twitter under Dialog Semi or under LinkedIn under Dialog Semiconductor.